Now we will start with the another unit, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Here, flowering plants that are taken into consideration are angiosperms. In angiosperms, the entire reproductive structure or reproductive part of the flower, that is plant, occurs within the flower. And therefore, it is very essential to study the structure of flower in order to understand the reproduction process that takes place in plants. We have already studied earlier about the structure of flower. A flower is considered as a compressed shoot that contains various organs like calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. The structures of all these organs we have studied before. Therefore, as we all know that androecium and gynoecium out of the two forms the fertile units of the flower, so it is essential to study about the reproductive units and the fertile part of these plants. Therefore, a flower consists of two types of appendages. Two outer sterile appendages or sterile parts and two inner fertile parts. Therefore, the structure of flower can be divided into basically two types, that is, the presence of organs within the flower can be divided into two types, the outer sterile parts and the inner fertile parts. Now, as said earlier, the sterile parts, that is, cannot undergo reproduction, are calyx and corolla. Whose basic units are sepals for calyx and petals for corolla. And the two fertile parts of the flower are androecium whose basic reproductive unit is stamen and is considered as the male reproductive part of the flower. And the second fertile part is gynoecium, which contains carpels or pistils as their basic unit and are considered as the female reproductive organ of the flower. Now, what are stamens and carpels? Stamens, that is the male reproductive part or male reproductive organ of a flower, the part that forms the entire male reproductive organ, that is androecium, is also known as microsporogenesis. This figure depicts the structure of a stamen As it can be seen from the figure, the tip portion of the stamen is known as anther, which liberates the pollen grains, and the long slender portion to which it is connected is known as filament, and a connective portion that is which connects the two, that is anther and filament, that portion is known as connective. Therefore, the structure of stamen basically includes three parts, that is anther, second filament, and third connective. Thus, connective is a portion that occurs between the vegetative tip, that is anther, and the down slender-like portion, filament. Thus, it occurs as a joint medium between the two. Then comes the female reproductive part, that is carpel. As told earlier, it is also known as pistil or megasporophyll. These structures form the female reproductive part that together forms the female reproductive organ known as gynoecium. The structure of a pistil basically consists of three parts. First, ovule that contains ovary. Thus, pistil is mainly referred or defined as the part of the flower which contains ovary, which is the main reproduction unit within the female reproductive part. Second comes stigma, and third, style. In the structure of a pistil, ovule is considered as the proximal region or the proximal part of the flower. Stigma is considered as the distal part of the pollen receptive region. And third, style is considered as the sterile region or the sterile connecting part between ovule and stigma. Thus, the structure of a pistil moves in the following manner. Ovule, which forms the proximal part, which is followed by style, which is the middle part, and ended at stigma. This figure describes the longitudinal section of a flower which contains the all reproductive units and the sterile units of a flower, that is calyx, corolla, sepals in form of sepals and petals, then reproductive parts like style, stigma, ovary, which forms the female reproductive part, anther, connective, and filament, which forms the male reproductive part. Now we will start with the unit of sexual reproduction in flowering plants. In this unit, we will study about the structure of flower that basically deals with the reproductive unit or reproduction process in the plant. In various flowering plants like angiosperms, the reproductive parts or reproduction process occurs within the flower. These parts include structures like sepals, petals, stamens, and carpels. Out of these four, the stamens and carpels form the male and female reproductive part respectively. In various unisexual flowers like papaya and watermelon, both the reproductive parts, that is male and female, are located within the same flower. But in other plants like hibiscus and mustard, which is a bisexual one, both the male and female are present within the same flower. Stamen is the male reproductive part and it produces pollen grains that are yellowish in color. Carpel is present in the center of a flower and is the female reproductive part. It is made up of three parts. The swollen bottom part is ovary, elongated part is style, and the terminal part, which may be sticky, is stigma. The ovary contains ovules and each ovule has an egg cell. The male germ cell produced by the pollen grain fuses with the female gamete present in the ovule. The fusion of such germ cells or fertilization gives up the zygote which is capable of growing into a new plant. Thus the pollen needs to be transferred from stamen to stigma. If this transfer of pollen occurs within the same flower, it is referred to as self-pollination. However, if the pollen is transferred from one flower to the another one, it is known as cross-pollination. This transfer of pollen from one flower to another is achieved by agents like wind, water, or animals. After the pollen lands on a suitable stigma, it has to reach the female germ cells which are present within the ovary. For this, a tube grows out of the pollen grain and travels through the style to reach the ovary. After fertilization, the zygote divides several times to form an embryo within the ovule. This ovule that is developed a tough coat and is gradually converted into the seed, which then gradually rapidly ripens to form a fruit. Meanwhile, the petals, sepal, stamen, style and stigma may shiver and fall off. This is the time that why the flowering plant still possesses the fruit, and thereby the seed that is contained within it develops into an embryo or another seedling plant, and therefore how the sexual reproduction process goes on.